Once Upon a Time in Africa by Dale Leopkey. Once upon a time, a Canadian stranger came to a faraway land called Kenya. At first, the stranger was excited to be in a new land. There were many new things to see and do in this beautiful land. While working and living in Kenya, the stranger and his wife met a garden lady named Violet. Our African Violet. Violet Amunga's father had died 15 years earlier, leaving a significant number of children amongst his 3 wives. Beatrice, his 3rd wife, had low status in the clan and struggled to raise her 5 daughters, one of whom was Violet. Violet and 2 of her sisters had moved into the nearby town of Kakamega to earn money for their family. There, employed by an NGO as a garden lady, she made 30 cents an hour digging the garden and watering and nurturing 3,000 seedlings. Violet also adopted 2 elderly Canadian strangers, inviting us often into her modest home. She taught us how to plant a garden, gave us lessons on the Luya language and culture, including singing and hand dancing. Cooking lessons included uji, which is a millet porridge, and skuma wiki, literally to stretch the week, a dish with collard greens. She served us a goat stew that we shared with her sisters in their tiny home, and we were even invited to her mother's clan compound to take part in her sister Trufena's wedding planning. Trufena's wedding plans. On Sunday, I went to a planning meeting for Trufena's wedding on August 9th. The wedding is organized by the whole church, and all 400 members will be in attendance. The budget is $500 Canadian, and there's a lot of praying and a mighty effort amongst all 400 to raise this large sum. I'm not sure how I got here, being the only non-believer in Kakamega. The meal will be stew, maize, porridge, and greens. The high table will have chicken and soda. The bride and groom were sequestered with the pastor for many hours in a deep counseling session. Afterwards, I asked Trufena what the pastor told her, and she said they were told not to mess around before the wedding. I hope all my kids get this message. Bride price negotiations. Yesterday, I attended a bridal negotiation. A part of the bride's family, i.e. Trufena, the middle daughter, is being sought after, and Luya tradition dictates a negotiation for a bride price. Early Saturday morning, 3 of the sisters and myself traveled to the clan compound about 20 kilometers away. Fun, but extremely rough journey, typical of travel in Kenya. These 5 sisters are all daughters of a 3rd wife. The clan village is made up of the 3 wives and their children. All is not harmony, as each wife had a different status. The sisters' mother's compound was idyllic, about 1 acre of meadow with beautiful shade trees. 5 houses, huts, surround the meadow. Everything was meticulously cleaned for the meeting of the 2 families. The huts are made of mud and were freshly coated. The floors had a new coat of cow dung. 3 huts had metal roofs, a sign of wealth, and 2 were traditional thatch. The negotiation was held in the largest hut. It was very pleasant inside, as there was a gap between the roof and the wall to allow sunlight to circulate. Cow dung floors dry to a consistency of new concrete, and when freshly laid, have a pleasant new mown lawn scent. Inside the hut were 2 tables covered with lace tablecloths. The men were escorted to this hut while we waited for the groom's family. This turned out to be a long wait, i.e. about 3 hours. Out the small window I had a glimpse of the women and children busy preparing the celebration meal. Upon the arrival of the groom's family, there was another silent spell while we sized each other up. In the meantime, the women served a very prestigious treat by Kenyan Coca-Cola, and white bread margarine sandwiches. The negotiations. The bride's family wanted 8 cows, 1 goat, 20,000 shillings, which is about 400 Canadian dollars, plus 250 shillings for mother's milk, i.e., that's the money for the bride's mother for nursing the bride as an infant. The groom's family agreed to the mother's milk and suggested 5 cows, 1 goat, and 1,500 shillings. That negotiation required 2 hours, and the agreement was reached except for the goat. The groom's family felt this was humiliating, while the other side maintained it was tradition. After 5 hours, I thought it was all settled. However, they had yet to discuss the terms of payment. They agreed that the mother's milk, 3,000 shillings, and 2 cows should be paid before the wedding. However, it turns out this is the final price. No one pays after the wedding. The initial high is all for show and bragging rights. The day continued on with a feast, happy families walking home at sunset on trails through lush green farmland and down a red sandy African road, only to be struck by a violent lightning storm. My memories of the ride home are flashing headlights and people streaming along the bright red road bordered by green sugarcane. I almost felt like a Kenyan, and in fact was paid a great compliment for my patience in sitting through the negotiation. I was told I acted like a true Kenyan elder. I was later amused to learn that the 5 sisters had been listening to the negotiations behind the closed door. Journal entry, Sunday, August 10th, 2003, the wedding. Yesterday was the wedding, an 8-hour marathon event. We were mesmerized and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. Kenyan friends have included us wholeheartedly, and our day began with a rough ride to a small home on the edge of Kakamega, where the bride, 10 bridesmaids, and about 20 small totos, attendants, had spent the night in preparation. We were quickly immersed in the excitement of the day. Hair was being curled, dresses flounced, suits displayed, and many pictures taken. The bride was dressed in a Cinderella white gown, complete with train and veil. The bridesmaids wore beautiful Katanga-style purple dresses, and other attendants had bright pink dresses and all the accessories, gloves and hats, and blue suits for small boys. The early morning was full of bright sunshine, dancing, and nervous anticipation as he awaited the arrival of the groom and his followers. His duty was to escort the bride and party to the church. At long last, an assortment of vehicles made its way down the deeply rutted African red soil road. With the arrival of the groom, the bride and party condescended to leave the house with much pomp, ceremony, song, and dance. Too many people crowded into too few cars, and we made our happy way to the church, a barn-like building nicely located on a small hill overlooking the town, and small shambas circled with fields of maize. We were greeted with more song and dance and friendly welcomes, only a beginning to a wondrous event that left us touched and happy to be part of the celebration. We felt so privileged to be part of this joyous event, filled with wonderful music, dance, and interesting exchange of vows. I wish you could have seen the tiny girls and bridesmaids slowly dance their way into the church. At the end of the service, guests lined up to present their gifts: wooden tables, chairs, dishpans, and pots, with the same fancy rhythmic footwork set to a lively music. What did we learn from Violet and her family? That true friendship is readily available even in faraway places.